All righty, welcome back from the episode of Two Plane Sports. Today, it is a recruiting only video. We know you guys love these videos. I know we've been slacking a little bit. We've been consistent with our live stream, but we thought we'd get out a recruiting update video. Obviously, as you're watching this is Wednesday, December 13th. Some stuff happened yesterday with Caden Green, less than ideal for Oklahoma. So we're going to talk about that. Where does Oklahoma look in the transfer portal for offensive linemen? What's going on along the defensive line between transfers and potentially another 4 or 5 star, depending on what site you look at, that's currently committed elsewhere. And then we're going to finish it all up and talk a little bit of the tight end room. So before we do, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 6,200 subscribers. As we're watching or as we're recording this video, we're about 60 subscribers away. So let's get to 6,200. Hit the button, turn the notification bell on because we go live every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Central. And then follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify. Everything's linked in the description below, all at Two Plane Sports. So, as I said at the top, Caden Green's out. I guess there is a world where he could come back, but based on the reports, it seems like it might be mutually beneficial that this is a relationship that has ended and both parties go their separate ways. So assuming that does happen, we're not going to drown on that. It is, if you're curious what our thoughts are, you can check out our live stream. Long story short, we don't have confirmation, but it does not look good. And it looks like maybe some schools were
cheating.
Cheating, yes.
Just a little bit.
Just a
cheating.
little bit. Definitely from the outside looking in, that's the way it appears. But maybe there's more to the story, but you never know. So where does Oklahoma look along the offensive line? At this point, Oklahoma is looking to replace all 5 starting offensive linemen from this season, which is pretty unprecedented. They haven't done that in a long time since, what was it, after the 2019 season with Baker, I believe, or was it 2018 season whenever they won, the best offensive line. Was it the Bob Moore Award or whatever it is?
I thought it was the Joe Moore Award.
Joe Moore. Yeah, not Bob. Joe Moore Award. They lost.
This guy doesn't know ball.
I know. Not at all. Yeah. I knew it's a 3-letter word. But they haven't done that where they're having to replace most, or in this case, all their offensive line. So when you look at it, naturally you think, okay, they got Spencer Brown. He can contribute and play a starting role. Jacob Sexton could as well. Could Joshua Bates step up as a redshirt freshman? Maybe. But Oklahoma needs to add a couple of veteran guys here. So where do they look? I mean, they've got Spencer Brown in the bag. He's going to visit this weekend. He will also be visiting with his former teammate from Michigan State, and Gino Vandemark. He's coming down. He played a couple games in 2022, started. Also started last year, I think it was 9 or 10 games or something like that in the 2023 season. Can play the interior offensive line. That's where Oklahoma really needs some help here because Spencer Brown plays the tackle position, and you've got Sexton. And you need someone to come in and play the interior offensive line. And I think Gino is a guy that could fill that role. He's versatile. He's got some starting experience playing in the Big Ten. He's talented. So I like the odd, you like the odds there with Spencer Brown already on board. Another guy that OU could be looking at, I'm just going to go through and then I'm going to get your guys' thoughts, is Fabeki Nwayu. And I apologize. I am notorious for butchering names. So, if I butchered it, my apologies. But he's the offensive lineman from UNT with the connection to Seth Luttrell. He finished up his redshirt sophomore year, so he's going to come in with a couple years of eligibility to Oklahoma if he does indeed commit to Oklahoma or wherever he goes. And then Oklahoma's also looking at Chase Pazantes from Texas A&M, the freshman that came in, started every game. Everyone wants him. Very highly sought after commodity in the transfer portal. Probably Chase Pazantes is probably the most far-fetched guy that we talked about. So with all that, after 5 minutes, people are like, good Lord, stop talking. Jose, what are your thoughts on what Oklahoma needs to do. A couple of guys that I mentioned for this offensive line. And this is the number one spot that Oklahoma needs to fill in this transfer portal at this point.
Well, Gino and Fabecki were already pretty important targets for this portal cycle because, as we've mentioned multiple times over the last couple of years, OU hasn't really been recruiting true guards out of high school, mostly offensive tackles that eventually transition to guard, i.e. Kane Green. So they were important. Now they just became that much more important because, like you mentioned, you're having to replace the entire starting group. Now, I don't think that it's that. I mean, you were talking about it, and it made me feel maybe in a positive light. Not the worst thing ever, because now you're not having to just do a patch job for one or two spots. You can get a whole group of guys that you'll see. Okay, these are the five that should have the best chemistry and will need to develop as a unit, and hopefully in a couple years have another Joe Moore award-winning line. Now, I'm not expecting that to happen. That's the ideal scenario, but we had to do that. We had to do it once before. You got a group of five guys that had similar eligibilities, all did it, all kind of grew up together along that offensive line, and it worked out for Oklahoma in the long run. Will OU have some struggles next year? Yes, but if you bring in Gino, I think that alleviates at least communication errors between him and Spencer Brown, given that they played together, and I believe they both played on the same side of the line at Michigan State. Fabecki has some familiarity with Luttrell. He's been there. He was recruited there in 2021. And I believe that was the last season that Luttrell was the head coach at UNT. So he's at least familiar with the scheme and probably joined UNT, assuming that he was going to be playing for Luttrell for at least a couple of years. So he's got to have some familiarity. I think in a perfect world, you get both of them. Because even if they aren't starters, kind of similar to a Caleb Schaefer from last year, you need them for depth in case there's an injury, which there's always going to be at least one, unfortunately, on the offensive line where they just go down for 1 or 2 games. You need someone to fill in and be able to help and make sure you're not losing any productivity, especially when you have a freshman and a first-year starter in Jackson Arnold, where you want to make sure he's not having to stress about looking down and making sure his offensive line isn't just letting people run free and go kill him like the Cincinnati Bengals do for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I mentioned on the live stream that I think this offense is the most talented we've seen since Baker Mayfield, as long as we can protect and run the ball, and that it comes down to the offensive line, obviously. I think we need at least 2 dudes in the portal. We talked about it in the live stream as well, and I think if I had my choice of 2 dudes, I would pick Vandermark and I would pick Chase Basantis. With Vandermark, the connection that he already has with Spencer Brown doesn't suck. It only benefits them. And Chase Basantis is a dude who was offered by everybody: Tennessee, Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, Florida, Clemson, you name it, he was offered. They're both like 6'5", 300-pound dudes. I think if you land 2 of those dudes, one of them, whatever, you got to bring some of these dudes in and ease some of that pressure and stress that Brum kind of spoke into existence a couple weeks ago when he started talking about how bad Oklahoma was going to be on the offensive line during a live stream and made us all freak out about it. But get a couple of these dudes, you could start relaxing a little bit. Chase Basantis is the dream.
You can relax, and there'll be growing pains. At least you'd have some starting experience if you can land. I mean, you've got Spencer Brown, and you land these, at least 2 of these 3 guys that we're talking about. Oklahoma, I think, at a minimum, will take 3 offensive line transfers here. Whether it's, Spencer Brown plus Fabecki and Gino Vandermark, or it's someone else. I think at a minimum they're taking 3, if not a 4th. They might not all start.
Yeah. I think Spencer Brown needs to be on the phone with Gino like every day until it happens.
Well,
I'm sure he is. But
yeah, Gino and Spencer Brown are taking their visit together.
That doesn't suck.
You would like to think that former teammates that have known each other for years would be like, hey, come on, just come down here and let's continue.
They can just go from packing Zins up in East Lansing to packing Zins together in Norman.
Essentially. the same exact thing. So the offensive line is by far the most critical component to this whole team, like you said, Brandon. I mean, this is an extremely talented team. They're going to be able to score points as long as Jackson Arnold can get protection and not be killed every week and running for his life like Spencer Rattler was with South Carolina last year.
And yeah,
It's
you got to
brutal.
create some holes to those running backs too, because they're pretty special too.
For sure. So let's talk on the other side of the trenches. Some, defensive line recruiting is probably always a hot topic and people absolutely love to talk about. Chris McClellan. So I feel like we're back in, what was it, 2021 or whatever it was. It just popped back up, and here we are. We're jumping back 2 years, and now Chris McClellan, we're talking about his recruitment again. He's in the portal. He's going to be doing an in-home visit with Oklahoma tomorrow, then going to Missouri, and then going to Colorado. He knows what he needs to know at Oklahoma, so he's not going to visit Oklahoma, or at least right now, and then he'll ultimately make the decision. Seems like Oklahoma's been proactive with Chris McClellan. Seems like they've obviously prioritized him. They tried to convince him to stay before he went to Florida, but didn't really have proof in the pudding. Now Brent Venables and the staff does have that. Does Oklahoma get this done before he boards the plane to go to Missouri?
I hope so. I think the defensive line and the future of the defensive line, the outlook of the defensive line is like the polar opposite of what the offensive line is like right now. That's a room where you feel no matter what, even if we don't get these kids that we're about to talk about, you still feel really, really good about Oklahoma's defensive line. And if you watch the live stream on Tuesday, we kind of wrapped it up by talking about it would just be like, I think Brum used the word gravy to describe Deion Burks, and it was, because that was not really a huge area of need. That was a very talented wide receiver room. Obviously, you take more receivers, especially guys like him, if they want to come. If you can land a guy like Chris McClellan, just to throw him with who's already there, with who's coming in the 2024 class, it's going to be crazy. Like that D line going forward is going to be bananas. And so, and him being from Wasso doesn't suck. I don't think him being best friends or close friends with Gentry Williams doesn't suck. Let's get it done, boys.
Yeah, basically everything you just said, Brandon. That summarizes what this recruitment for Chris McClellan again is going to be like. You got to hope that you can prevent him from getting on those planes. Now, it seems extremely unlikely given that Oklahoma, I believe, has already visited him once at Florida. So the fact that he's going to meet Oklahoma again before he does take those other two visits has to be a positive thing for OU, where you can leave a really big mark on where that decision is going to lean once he does make that decision. The things you worry about, right, when you look at the other two programs, we're seeing it with Missouri. I think they're basically just dropping their entire load in this 2023 cycle, both high school and transfer portal. NIL-wise, they're going to look like A&M did in 2022, where they did everything they could to get the best, and then they can't recruit much after the fact, which, is an approach. Some may say good, some may say bad. That it is something. And then Colorado, they just were terrible on both sides of the line. They could not protect Shador. He ended up getting a back injury that prevented him from playing the last game or two of the Buff season. And their defensive line couldn't stop the run. I think somehow it was worse than USC's, which is tough to do. So they need help, and they're going to pay what they need to make sure that they get that help. I don't know how much NIL is going to be a factor here. But I do think Oklahoma will play it to make sure that they can keep an in-state guy, get him to come back to play for the state of Oklahoma. And having that help on the defensive line never hurts, especially because after next year, he will still have eligibility. He'll still have 3 years, including next year. So post year one of the SEC, he'll have 2 more years. you're probably going to lose a guy like you're going to lose Terry, more than likely losing Lacey, or you're definitely losing Lacey, excuse me, and then so you've got to fill in those spots for the future with experience, so you're not having to go back to the transfer portal every single year for more interior defensive line help.
You'd hope not, but I guess if Chris McCullen came in this year and put together a fantastic year, he could be going to the draft, which is a good thing because at the end of the day, you can sell recruits and transfers on that. It's totally a 180 compared to what OU has been selling to players on the defensive line. Staying on the defensive line, a 2024 kid that I think we've talked about at length months and months ago, but he hadn't really been a topic of discussion, is Dominic McKinley, until the recent developments with Jimbo being fired and Mike Elko being hired as the head coach, and now that their position coach is the DC of Syracuse, it seems like the wheels are falling off a little bit, or at least rumblings are. Dominic McKinley has now been reported that he will not sign in the early National Signing Day and will be postponing it until February, which to me, if you're Oklahoma, I think that's a win, or honestly any other program, whether it's Oklahoma, Texas, or LSU. He's obviously unsure. Oklahoma's going to be doing an in-home with him Thursday, I believe, or late this week. I think Oklahoma's going to go all in and try to flip him and put the full court press on him, because you felt like Oklahoma had a really good shot for a long time. Then all of a sudden A&M pulled it off. It seemed like OU might have been second. Oklahoma went in here and won this recruitment in addition to Chris McClellan. You want to talk about winning the offseason, winning the transfer portal season. I know this isn't a transfer, but this would be ridiculous if OU was able to do this.
Yeah, if you do that, I think Todd Bates is going to start getting some head coaching offers, like maybe on the spot.
Yeah, potentially. And I mean, shout out Syracuse, making sure that they pulled away Elijah Robinson from A&M, which again, not to beat a dead horse there, but the fact that he didn't get the head coaching job, I understand that interim coaches rarely get those spots, but they fought so hard to keep him. Might as well just give him the spot since you felt so highly of him. Then you give him an opportunity to leave, which he took, and it opens up that door for Oklahoma. For Dominic McKinley, McKinley was very open at saying, like, Robinson is the reason I'm going to stick around regardless of what that head coach, who the head coach is. Now, he's gone. OU's it's not a we think, we know they're putting the whole full court press on him. You've seen his peers in the 2024 class that are committed to Oklahoma currently openly tweet about how he needs to join that power line. They got a new graphic where his silhouette is there alongside all of theirs. You know, if we remember the first one that was created, he was part of it. Zena Umazulu was also part of it. Obviously, he's a Texas now, but that power line graphic definitely lost a couple of people throughout the recruiting cycle. Now they added him back. So these kids are definitely going to do everything they can to do a lot of peer recruiting, and Todd Bates, Javis, BV are going to do their part to make sure that he feels comfortable, because from everything that's been reported, his family, the people around him feel very comfortable with who Todd Bates is as a person, and who they're basically dominating to for the next 3 to 4 years. Kind of just got to sell him on Norman being the place for him to succeed, because he was also a player that isn't just, he's going to play school and play football. He was very open about wanting to get an engineering degree, and Oklahoma's got a good engineering program.
Great place to do it. I know a guy.
Yeah, I do know a guy or two that did get a good engineering degree there.
Oh shoot, we know a couple guys. Yeah, you're right. But
yeah, you know a couple.
Yeah, there's.
I can vouch. It's solid, Dominic. Come on home.
Yeah, there's not much more to add to what you guys said. I mean, just you get Dominic McKinley, and especially with Chris McCullen. I mean, if you get either or, but if you can somehow get both, man, that D line of the future is going to be just disgusting. I mean, really, really, really good.
For sure. And we'll wrap this video up with talking along the offense, the tight end room. The tight end room is another position of need. I would say probably number 2 behind the offensive line.
I agree.
Oklahoma recently, offered Jalen Conyers and was kind of going after Jalen Conyers, but he took a visit at Texas Tech and pulled the trigger, and he's committed to Texas Tech. So he's off the board. Oklahoma is set to visit here pretty soon. I think it's this weekend. It'll be what's his name?
Holden
Stace.
Stace.
I was
Something like
blanking. Holden Stace from Notre Dame, the number 13 overall prospect in the transfer portal. Last year, put together a stat line of 15 catches, 176 yards, and 4 touchdowns for the Irish. A guy that can catch the ball, fill the role, fill the need that Oklahoma needs. He visited Tennessee recently. He'll be going to visit Washington and then visit Oklahoma. So hopefully he can make it through that Washington visit if he hadn't already, and then hopefully it's Oklahoma in the end. But I think you've got Joe John Finley now locked into Oklahoma. He's got to go get himself a tight end or 2 in this. I mean, obviously you got Devon Mitchell, but I think they got to take at least 1. I would like to see 2, to be honest.
Yeah, I think with Jojan there, it's only going to help. I mean, him being a part of the offensive play caller now, like he's a tight end, man. You got to think he's going to try to get his guys involved. And Holden Stays is a dude like 6'4", 250. He's offered by everybody. He's stamped. He's got the Bama stamp of approval. He would be a perfect way to bridge that gap between what I think Devon Mitchell's going to be. I compare Devon Mitchell to like Calvin Johnson-esque, just as far as his athleticism and his physique, what he brings to the table there. I think he has a lot of just freak athlete stuff to him. But he's young. He's a baby. He should be a senior in high school next year playing in the SEC, which is it's always a little scary. It's different level of football there. And I know he came from a big high school, but he didn't. It's different in the SEC. Holden Stays would be just a great way to bridge that gap. The guy was very athletic. You mentioned his stats a little bit, Rum. He did a little bit at Notre Dame. Just would be a great way to bridge that gap. Hopefully, JJF can get it done and get it going.
And one thing, I think Jalen Conyers was someone that OU liked, but they need someone that's a better blocker than what Jalen can provide. Holden, given that he's a bigger body, I think has the possibility to be that better blocking tight end. Because as we've talked about before, Oklahoma has talent in that room. Young, but they don't really have those big bodies that you need. Now, Devon Mitchell will come in, and according to his 24/7, is about the same size as Holden Stace. Again, as a guy that should be a senior in high school next year, is listed at 6'4", 245. He's a big body, but at the end of the day, you do need to learn a little bit of technique, especially once you get into the college game, on how to block, especially as a tight end. It's not an easy thing to do. And assuming Holden Stace can do that, that's something Oklahoma is definitely going to value going into next year and making sure that you have someone that can kind of teach Devon the ropes and teach the other guys the ropes too, because again, you have talent. You just haven't really gotten to see it because their blocking abilities probably aren't to the level that you need them to be.
For sure. You'd like to think that Oklahoma, being the last visit, would have the opportunity to really lock this thing down. And Oklahoma needs a guy like him. And I certainly hope that they can do so. And if not, they got to go get someone else. So, but that's all I've got for this show. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Brandon, do you have an indie video challenge?
We'll just do which of the guys we talked about, or guys that we didn't talk about, would you most like to see Oklahoma land? I think all of us are in favor of hitting on some offensive lineman that's going to be a monster. That would be my pick. I think I picked Chase Besantis as my guy, but who would you guys have as your? If you can only get one type situation here.
Only get one. That's tough. I probably would say Chris McClellan. I know the offensive line would be good, but defensive line. Let's make it great. So anyway, made it this far. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 6,200. I think we're about 60 subscribers away. So help us out. It's free and easy. Turn that notification bell on, so you know when we go live and post videos. We go live every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Central. And follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. And we'll catch you guys next time.